I returned from the hospital still aching, my legs trembling with every step, the surgery incision stinging under my clothes. I had been there for 11 days, 11 long days, fighting off an infection that almost killed me, fighting the fear of never waking up, and fighting the loneliness of those white walls where not a single soul came to see me. Malcolm, my son, my only child, never showed up. Celeste, my daughter-in-law, didn't even call, didn't send a single text, nothing. When the doctor handed me the discharge papers, I had to ask a nurse to call me a cab because nobody was there waiting for me. Nobody. I arrived home with the ridiculous hope that I would at least find a note, maybe a hot meal, some indication that someone had been worried about me. I opened the door slowly, carrying my small bag of hospital belongings. Silence was the first thing that greeted me, and then came the shock. There was a second refrigerator in the kitchen. It was big, modern, and shiny, sitting right next to my old fridge, the one that had served us faithfully for years. I stood there frozen, just staring at it. I couldn't understand what was going on. Malcolm walked out of the living room with a can of beer in his hand, acting like everything was perfectly normal. Celeste followed him, carrying adhesive labels and a permanent marker. They didn't even bother to glance at me. "What is this?" I asked, pointing at the new refrigerator. Malcolm took a long drink before he answered me. "It's our fridge, Mom. For our stuff." "Our fridge?" I repeated, completely unable to believe what I was hearing. Celeste knelt down in front of the appliance and started sticking labels onto every shelf, writing her name in large, thick letters. Shelley, Shelley, Shelley on every rack, in every drawer, in every available space. "Exactly," she snapped without even turning around to look at me. "This is for our groceries, the ones we buy with our own money. We don't want them getting mixed up with yours." I felt like the floor was moving beneath my feet. I still had the surgery stitches pulling at my skin. It still hurt just to take a deep breath. And there they were, marking their territory in my own kitchen. "But this is my house," I whispered, trembling. Malcolm let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Yeah, Mom, your house. But we live here too, remember? And frankly, with your measly social security, you can't afford the things we like. So we decided to get better organized." Celeste stood up, looking at her work and admiring it. Every label shone like a slap right across my face. "Don't get offended, Vivian. It's just practical. You buy yours with your money. We buy ours with ours. That way there won't be any mix-ups." "Mix-ups?" My voice cracked when I said firmly it. "I have never, ever denied you anything from my fridge." "We know," Malcolm said, crushing the empty can in his hand. "But this is better, more orderly, more fair." Fair. That word echoed in my head like a broken bell. I looked at my old half-empty refrigerator, and then at their new, overflowing one. Two completely different worlds divided. Two realities separated by an invisible yet brutal line. The haves and the barely surviving. The ones who matter and the ones who are just dead weight. "Besides," Celeste continued, opening the new fridge to show me the interior, which was stocked with expensive cuts of meat, imported cheeses and costly wines. "We have certain standards. We don't like eating the same stuff you do. No offense." No offense. As if those words could somehow soften the poison that was coming out of her mouth. Malcolm approached and patted me on the shoulder condescendingly. "Relax, Mom. It's nothing personal. It's just that, well, you're not young anymore. Your pension barely covers the basics. We need more. We deserve more." Deserve. Another word that sliced right through me like a knife. I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream that I had worked 35 years in a manufacturing plant, completely ruining my back to give him everything he needed. I wanted to remind them that I sold my mother's jewelry to pay for his private college tuition. I wanted to cry and ask them how they could treat me this way after everything I had done for them, but I said firmly nothing. My body was just too tired and my heart was way too broken. The surgery stitches throbbed, reminding me that I had barely survived something terrible. I simply didn't have the strength to fight. "I'm going to rest," I murmured, dragging my bag toward the small room in the back. "Sure, Mom. Rest up," Malcolm said, already turning back toward the living room where the television was waiting for him. Celeste closed her refrigerator with a satisfied thud. The sound resonated through the kitchen, throughout the whole house, and right through my entire chest. I walked down the hall, feeling every single step as pure torture. The small back room was tiny, barely enough space for a twin bed and an old wardrobe. It used to be my sewing room, but now it was my exile. Malcolm and Celeste had moved in a year ago. Just until we find something better, they had said. They never found it. Instead, they gradually took up more and more space. First my master bedroom, then the living room, and then every corner of what was once my home. And I let them out of love, out of fear of being alone, out of the stupid hope that things would get better. I sat down on the bed and the tears finally came. Hot, bitter, and completely silent. From outside I could hear their laughter, the television blaring, the sound of the new refrigerator opening and closing, the clinking of wine glasses. They were celebrating. Celebrating what? I didn't know. Maybe they were celebrating finally putting me in my place. Maybe they were celebrating that they no longer had to fake respect for me. Maybe they were celebrating that the old woman, the nuisance, had accepted her fate without putting up a fight. I lay down slowly, every muscle in my body protesting. I closed my eyes, but I still couldn't sleep. The images just kept flashing through my mind like a cruel movie. The refrigerator with the labels, Celeste's smug smile, Malcolm's icy indifference, the words they had thrown at me like stones. Your meager pension. We don't want to mix our things with yours. You're not young anymore. We deserve more. Each phrase was like another nail in the coffin of our relationship. Every single word confirmed what I had known deep down but just refused to accept. To them, I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a burden, dead weight, someone to exploit until they squeezed the very last drop out of me. And the worst part was that I had allowed it to happen year after year, abuse after abuse, humiliation after humiliation. But something shifted in that moment. Something broke inside me as I lay on that narrow bed in that dark little room in that house that no longer even felt like mine. A decision began to form. Slow, firm, and completely inevitable. I opened my eyes in the darkness, and a certainty filled my chest. They had made a mistake, a terrible mistake. They thought I was weak. They thought that I had given up. They thought they could do whatever they wanted without any consequences. But they were wrong. When they woke up in the morning, they would see something they would never forget. In the morning, they would finally learn who Vivian Devereaux really was. And that lesson was going to cost them everything. I couldn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those labels. Shelley, 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 like brand marks burned onto cattle, like declarations of ownership over something that had never belonged to them. I stared at the cracked ceiling of the small room, listening to their laughter drifting in from the living room. They were watching a show, drinking wine from that new refrigerator, enjoying their small victory over the worthless old lady. Because that was who I was to them now. A worthless old lady with a meager pension. 68 years old, a lifetime of work. And this was my reward. The tears just kept falling, but now they were different. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of indignation, of something that had been buried for years and was finally starting to wake up. I remembered when Malcolm was born 42 years ago. I was 26. His father, Richard, worked in construction and I was at the factory. We lived in a tiny apartment, but we were happy. Or at least that's what I thought. Malcolm was our miracle after 3 miscarriages. I cared for him as if he were made of delicate glass. I gave him absolutely everything. When Richard died 15 years ago from a sudden heart attack on the job, I thought the world was ending. Malcolm was 27. He was already an adult with his own life, but he promised me that he would take care of me. You'll never want for anything, Mom. I'll always be here for you. All lies. It was all just a pack of lies. The first few years after Richard's death were tough, but they were manageable. Malcolm would visit me, take me to the market, and fix things around the house. Then he met Celeste. She arrived 8 years ago like a raging hurricane. Beautiful, self-assured, and extremely ambitious. She worked in cosmetic sales but lived like she was a high-powered corporate executive. Expensive clothes, perfect nails, hair always professionally done at the city's most exclusive salon. From the very start, I noticed something in her eyes, a certain coldness, a constant calculation. She looked at me and she was evaluating how much I was worth, what she could get out of me. She's a little intense. I told Malcolm once, trying my best to be gentle. You're just jealous, Mom. Celeste is amazing. She's exactly what I need in my life. Jealous? Worried? I corrected myself internally, but he absolutely refused to listen to me. They got married just 6 months after they met. It was a costly wedding that I helped pay for because he was my only son, and he deserved the very best. $10,000 of my hard-earned savings. It was money that I had carefully guarded for years by working overtime shifts at the factory. We'll pay it back, Mom, as soon as we get settled. But I never saw a single penny returned to me. After the wedding, the visits became less frequent. The phone calls became brief, but the requests for money just multiplied. Mom, we need $1,000 for the apartment deposit. Mom, the car broke down. We need $3,000 for the repairs. Mom, Celeste needs some urgent dental work. That's going to be $5,000. Always urgent. Always absolutely necessary. Always presented with a heavy dose of guilt if I even hesitated for a moment. You don't want your only son to have a decent roof over his head, do you? You'd prefer us driving around in a dangerous car, putting our lives at risk. Do you really want Celeste to suffer from a terrible toothache? And so I paid over and over again because he was my son. Because a mother's love has absolutely no limits. Because I was deathly afraid that if I said firmly no, they would completely disappear from my life forever. When I finally retired 2 years ago, I thought that I could finally rest and relax. 35 long years at the factory had left me with severe arthritis in my hands, chronic back pain, and a modest Social Security check for just $800 a month. It wasn't much, but it was all mine. Richard, my late husband, had left me this small but fully paid-for house in a quiet neighborhood. It was my refuge, my security. Then the pandemic hit and everything changed in an instant. Malcolm lost his sales job. Celeste lost hers too. Suddenly they showed up at my front door with their suitcases. It's just temporary, Mom. Just until we get back on our feet again. Just a couple of months. A couple of months turned into an entire year. And in that 1 year everything just rotted. In the beginning they paid some of the expenses, bought groceries and helped with the bills, but little by little they just stopped doing that. We're looking for work, Mom. It's hard out there. We barely have enough money for ourselves to get by. But Celeste just kept on buying new clothes. And Malcolm just kept on ordering expensive craft beers. They both went out to expensive dinners while I ate eggs and toast for dinner. Then came the territorial takeover of my home. First it was my master bedroom. We need more space, Mom. You can sleep in the small room. It's cozier. Cozier? What a cruel word to use to describe that tiny box. Then it was the living room. We're going to put our new television in here. Yours is just too old now. My television was working perfectly fine. Theirs was completely unnecessary, but it arrived anyway. Gigantic, noisy, and completely invading my personal space. After that, they started completely controlling the kitchen. Celeste reorganized everything. She threw away my old pots and pans. These things are just hideous, Eleanor. So embarrassing for us. They were the same pots and pans that I had used to cook for Malcolm his whole entire childhood. The very same ones that Richard had given me for our first wedding anniversary. I saw them in the trash can and I said firmly nothing. I swallowed the pain just as I had been swallowing everything else. The requests for money continued, but now they were different, more aggressive, and much more demanding. Mom, I need you to lend me $2,000 for a course that will help me get a new job. Mom, Celeste needs a new phone. Hers just doesn't work anymore. That's another $1,000. Mom, we absolutely have to pay the credit card bill, or we're going to get sued. That's $4,000 that we need urgently. Every single time that I hesitated, the emotional blackmail would start. After everything that I've done for you, any mother would do this for her son. If you really loved me, you wouldn't even hesitate for a second. And the worst one, the one that Celeste said with a venomous smile on her face. One day we're going to be the ones taking care of you, Eleanor. You had better be generous to us now while you still can. Generous. I had been so incredibly generous that I had almost absolutely nothing left for myself. My savings had completely evaporated. The $30,000 that I had accumulated over decades of sacrifice were completely gone in just 2 short years. All spent on their whims, their luxuries, and their outright lies disguised as urgent needs. 3 months ago, I tried to open a separate emergency savings account, one that Richard had specifically set up for me. It had held $8,000, which was my very last reserve. But it was completely empty. What happened to the money in the emergency account? I asked Malcolm, trembling with fear. He barely even looked up from his phone. Oh, I used that to pay off some debts that I had. I was definitely going to tell you about it. How did you even access that account? It was only in my name. You gave me the key to the safety deposit box years ago, Mom. Don't you even remember doing that? I really didn't remember giving him the key. Maybe I had given it to him in a moment of complete trust. Maybe he had just taken it from one of my notebooks. It really didn't matter at that point. The money was completely gone. Debts for what? I insisted on knowing. Things, expenses. Don't you worry about it. Don't worry about it. As if I was just a stupid child who couldn't possibly understand anything. That night I cried, my soul tearing apart until I had absolutely no tears left to cry. I cried my soul tearing apart for Richard, who had worked so incredibly hard to leave me feeling secure in my old age. I cried my soul tearing apart for myself for allowing all of this to happen to me. I cried my soul tearing apart for the son that I thought that I had, who no longer even existed. And now, after 11 long days in the hospital, fighting for my life without them even showing up to see me even once, I returned home to find this. A divided refrigerator with labels that were marking their complete contempt for me, with words that were simply confirming what I already knew deep down inside. To them, I was just garbage, a depleted resource, someone to continue exploiting until there was absolutely nothing left of me. I sat down on the bed and took a deep breath, completely ignoring the sharp pain of the stitches. Something inside of me had irrevocably shifted. The Vivian who had always yielded, who had always forgiven, who had always put her son first, had finally died in that cold hospital bed. The one who had returned was very different now. Harder, much clearer, and far more determined. They wanted a war. And they were definitely going to get a war. But not tonight. Tonight I desperately needed to rest. I needed to think everything through. I needed to make a detailed plan. I closed my weary eyes. And finally sleep arrived. It was heavy, dark, and filled with vivid dreams where I was strong, and they were the ones who were crying. In the morning, absolutely everything would change. In the morning, my revenge would finally begin. I woke up well before dawn at 5 o'clock in the morning. The house was completely silent. Malcolm and Celeste were still sound asleep in my bedroom, in my matrimonial bed, under the sheets that I had so proudly bought with my very first retirement check. I slowly got up, feeling every single muscle in my body protesting. The surgery stitches pulled, but the pain no longer scared me. There were much worse pains than just the physical ones. I definitely knew that much now. I walked to the kitchen like a phantom. The new refrigerator shone brightly in the darkness. Those damned labels were reflecting the faint light that was coming in through the window. Shelly, Shelly, Shelly. I opened my old, half-empty refrigerator. A carton of milk, 3 eggs, some cheap cheese, and some bread from the day before. And that was absolutely all that I had to eat. My $800 Social Security pension went toward medicine, utilities, and the loans that Malcolm was able to wrangle out of me every single month. Then, just to completely confirm what I already knew, I opened their refrigerator, fully stocked to the brim. Absolutely stocked. Imported steaks, salmon, fresh shrimp, 3 different types of expensive French cheese, wines that cost more than $50 a bottle, exotic fruits that I couldn't even pronounce, gourmet pastries, and premium cold cuts. I slammed the door shut, feeling a horrible mix of both rage and pure disgust. They ate like absolute royalty while I survived on scraps. They indulged in every possible luxury while I counted pennies just to be able to afford to buy a loaf of bread. And they were doing all of this in my very own house, with my very own money, underneath my very own roof. I poured myself a glass of water, and then I sat down at the kitchen table. I desperately needed to think clearly. I desperately needed to come up with a very detailed plan. I could definitely kick them out of the house. It was still my house after all. Legally, it was in my name. But Malcolm had made me sign a piece of paper about 6 months ago. It's just to update the will, Mom. Just to keep everything in order. Nothing to worry about. I signed it without reading it very closely. I trusted him completely. I had always trusted him up until now. What had I really signed? I really didn't know. And that absolutely terrified me. I could just leave myself, look for a small apartment to rent, leave them the house and just disappear completely. But with what money was I supposed to do that? My meager pension barely covered the bare necessities. Rent would leave me completely out on the street with nothing. I could just confront them both, shout out everything that I felt, but I had tried that before. It always ended up exactly the same. They would completely deny everything, manipulate me, and make me feel incredibly guilty for even doubting their love for me. Mom, how could you even think that about us? We're here taking care of you, Mom. Don't you even see that? You're just so ungrateful. No, this time I was absolutely not going to fall into that exact same trap. I suddenly heard a noise coming from upstairs. Footsteps. They were finally waking up. I quickly retreated to the small room and quietly closed the door. I didn't want to see them just yet. Not until I knew exactly what to do. I lay back down again, pretending to still be asleep while I listened to their morning movements. The shower running. Celeste yelling at Malcolm because he had used her expensive shampoo. Malcolm answering her with complete indifference. Both of them arguing loudly about who was going to make breakfast. Neither one of them mentioned my name. Neither one of them even asked how I had spent the night. Nobody even bothered to knock on my door to see if I needed anything after spending 11 long days in the hospital. I simply did not even exist to them anymore. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, I heard them finally leave. The front door slammed shut with a loud bang. The car started up and then drove away. I waited for another 10 minutes to make sure that they weren't going to come back for something that they had forgotten. Then I finally left the small room. The house was an absolute mess. Dirty dishes were piled high in the sink, clothes were strewn all over the sofa, and food wrappers were everywhere. They had eaten smoked salmon and cream cheese for breakfast. The leftovers were still sitting out on the counter, completely uncovered, attracting flies. I cleaned up mechanically, not because I actually wanted to, but simply because it was what I had always done, cleaning up after their messes, collecting their waste, and erasing all of their tracks. As I was washing the dishes, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Lorraine Green Jenkins, watering her plants through the kitchen window. Mrs. Lorraine Green was 71 years old, also a widow, and lived completely alone. But she just always seemed so happy. Always smiling, always dressed so nicely, and always at peace. We had known each other for over 20 years. But we had never actually been close, just polite greetings, maybe a few comments about the weather, but nothing ever deep. But in that moment, just seeing her standing there with her watering can and straw hat, I felt an overwhelming feeling of terrible envy. She had what I had completely lost. Dignity, complete autonomy, and peace. As if she sensed my gaze on her, Mrs. Lorraine Green turned and saw me standing at the window. She smiled and waved at me. I weakly waved back at her. Then she did something that I really wasn't expecting. She put down her watering can and started walking towards my house. She then knocked on my front door. I hesitated for a long moment. I really didn't want anyone to see me like this, so completely destroyed and humiliated. But something inside of me compelled me to go and open it. Eleanor. Hello, Mrs. Lorraine Green said with a warm and very sincere smile on her face. I saw that you got back from the hospital just yesterday. How are you feeling today? How was I feeling? Such a simple question, and yet it was so incredibly impossible for me to even begin to answer. I'm getting better. I lied to her. Mrs. Lorraine Green then studied me with those incredibly wise eyes of hers that had clearly seen far too much of life. May I come in for just a minute? I really don't even know why I said firmly yes to her. Maybe it was because I desperately needed to talk to anyone who wasn't Malcolm or Celeste. Maybe it was because her compassionate gaze contained something that I had completely forgotten even existed. Genuine compassion for another human being. We walked into the kitchen together. Mrs. Lorraine Green immediately saw the two refrigerators. Her eyes just widened in complete surprise. "That's new," she commented, trying her absolute best to sound as neutral as possible. "It's for my son and my daughter-in-law for all of their things," I explained to her, feeling the burning shame rising in my cheeks. Mrs. Lorraine Green didn't say anything for a long moment. She just quietly observed all of the labels with Celeste's name written all over them. Then she looked directly at me. "Eleanor, please forgive me for being so direct, but I really need to tell you something that I've been wanting to tell you for months now." My heart started racing with a mixture of fear and trepidation. "What is it that you wanted to tell me?" "Your son and your daughter-in-law. I can hear them sometimes. The walls in these old houses just aren't that thick. I can hear the way that they speak to you, the way that they are constantly treating you." I lowered my gaze to the floor. The sheer humiliation was literally burning my throat. "Last night," Mrs. Lorraine Green continued on, her voice soft but also very firm, "when you arrived home from the hospital, I heard absolutely everything that they said to you about the refrigerator, about your meager pension, about all of your groceries." The tears just started falling down my face before I could even stop them. "And I heard something else too." Mrs. Lorraine Green moved even closer to me, and then placed her hand gently over mine. "After you went to sleep for the night, I just kept on listening to them." "What did they say about me?" I whispered, trembling, even though a part of me really didn't want to know the horrible truth. Mrs. Lorraine Green took a very deep breath before she spoke. "They were celebrating, toasting each other with expensive wine. And then Celeste said something to Malcolm that just chilled my blood to the bone. She barked. It won't be very long now before she finally passes away. The old lady can't possibly last for much longer. And when she finally does, this entire house will be all ours. It's worth at least $200,000. We can just sell it and finally live well and without any financial worries." The whole world just stopped spinning around me. Mrs. Lorraine Green squeezed my hand tightly. And then Malcolm just laughed and said, "I certainly hope that she hurries up and kicks the bucket. I'm already so tired of pretending that I even care about her." Something deep down inside of me just completely broke in that very moment. Not my actual heart, because that was already shattered into a million tiny pieces. Something much deeper, much more fundamental. The illusions, the hopes, the idea that somewhere underneath all of the cruelty and the abuse, my only son still actually loved me. "There's even more," Mrs. Lorraine Green said to me softly. "I've been seeing some things, some very strange movements around your house. About 2 weeks ago, I saw Malcolm leaving the local bank with some important-looking papers in his hands. He just looked so incredibly nervous. And Celeste has been receiving very large packages, boxes and boxes of them. She always brings them into the house when you are not around to see it." "What kind of boxes are they?" I asked her. "I really don't know, but they are very numerous and they look very expensive if I'm being honest." My mind just started racing. What exactly were they hiding from me? What else had they been concealing from me all this time? "Ellen," Mrs. Lorraine Green then looked at me very seriously. "You absolutely have to investigate this. You have to find out what they are really doing, because something deep down inside of me is telling me that it is much, much worse than you could possibly ever imagine." She was absolutely right. I knew it right down to my very bones. "I don't even know how to do that," I admitted to her. "I really don't even know where to begin." "I will help you with that," Mrs. Lorraine Green replied. "I have a very good friend, Mr. Langston Price Dawson. He's a lawyer, recently retired, but he is still very active in the local community. He really likes to help out with cases just like this one. Cases of family abuse." Family abuse. I had never ever really thought of it as actual abuse before, but that was exactly what it was. Abuse, exploitation, and just outright mistreatment. "Would you be willing to talk to him?" Mrs. Lorraine Green then asked me. I thought for a long moment about Malcolm, about all of the many times that I had trusted him completely, about all of the many times that he had utterly failed me in my life. I then thought about Celeste, about her fake smiles, her labels on the refrigerator, and her venomous and hurtful words. Then, I finally thought about myself, about the woman that I used to be, about the woman that I deserved to be. Yes, I finally said, my voice sounding much firmer than it had in many long years. Yes, I will talk to him. Good. I'll call him right now. He can come this afternoon while they're out, Mrs. Lorraine Green said with a smile, then promptly reached for her phone and dialed a number. She kept her voice low as she explained the situation, and with each word she spoke, I felt myself becoming more tangible, more legitimate, more seen. When she hung up, she fixed me with a determined look. He'll be here at 3. Bring everything you have, bank statements, documents, anything you've signed. Everything. I nodded, a sensation akin to hope stirring within me for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Mrs. Lorraine Green rose to leave, but not before giving me a strong maternal hug, the kind of embrace I hadn't experienced since Richard's passing. You're not alone, Ella Laner. Not anymore. As she departed, I remained seated in the kitchen, my gaze drawn to the 2 refrigerators. However, my perspective had shifted. They no longer stood as symbols of my humiliation, but as evidence of cruelty, of abuse, of systematic exploitation. Soon they would serve as the proof I needed to reclaim my life. The hours leading up to 3 p.m. stretched on endlessly. I moved through the house like a detective in a film, meticulously searching for any documents or papers that could serve as evidence. I began with my room, or what used to be my room, now the exclusive domain of Malcolm and Celeste. Entering felt like infiltrating enemy territory. I slowly opened the door, the air thick with Celeste's expensive perfume. The bed was unmade, clothes were scattered haphazardly, and boxes were stacked against the wall, the same boxes Mrs. Lorraine Green had mentioned. I approached to examine them more closely. They were from luxury brands. Shoes, purses, designer clothes. Each box represented hundreds, perhaps thousands of dollars. Where had they gotten that kind of money? I opened the closet, revealing even more new clothes, dresses with the tags still attached, and expensive suits. Celeste possessed at least 20 pairs of high-heeled shoes that cost upwards of $300 each. Malcolm had watches, for brand-name watches lined up neatly in a special box. I recognized one as a likely fake Rolex, but even the good imitations cost over $1,000. How could they afford all of this when they claimed to be unemployed and unable to contribute to household expenses? I checked the drawers of Malcolm's nightstand, finding chargers, headphones, crumpled papers, and receipts. I pocketed the receipts, noting expenses for expensive restaurants, bars, and online purchases. One receipt was from a casino, showing a $500 loss in a single night just 3 weeks prior. Moving on to Celeste's drawer, I discovered credit card statements. 3 different cards, all carrying substantial debts. One with a $20,000 balance, another with $8,000, and the third with $5,000, a total of $33,000 in credit card debt. But what truly chilled me was seeing another card, one I didn't recognize. The statement bore my name, Eleanor Devereaux, with a credit limit of $10,000 and a current balance of $9,950. I had never applied for that card. My hands trembled as I scanned the charges. Furniture, electronics, clothing, restaurants, travel, all signed with my name, but none of it used by me. Malcolm had opened a credit card in my name without my permission and maxed it out. That was fraud, a crime. I took the statement and continued my search. I found more papers, contracts, loan documents, all bearing my signature. When had I signed all of this? I strained to remember. Malcolm constantly presented papers to me saying, "Sign here, Mom. It's for the insurance. Sign here, Mom. It's to renew the house registration. I need your signature for this bank process." I signed without reading, trusting him implicitly. He was my son, and he had abused that trust to rob me, bury me in debt, and financially destroy me. Then I found one paper that took my breath away. It was an application for a $50,000 home equity loan against the house. My house, the one Richard had left me. Malcolm had attempted to use the house as collateral. The application was marked as pending approval, meaning it hadn't been processed yet, but the intention was clear, cruel. They wanted to take my house, not wait until I died. Take it now. I gathered all the papers I had found and took them to the small room, hiding them under the mattress. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. I then went to the kitchen and searched for my own documents, the ones I kept in a cookie tin on top of the cabinet. Bank statements, pension receipts, medical bills. I pulled out the last 6 months of bank statements and began reviewing them carefully. There were transfers I didn't recognize, large withdrawals, $500 here, $800 there, $1,000 further on, small amounts that added up to thousands. And there were automatic charges. Subscriptions to premium streaming services, exclusive gyms, gourmet food delivery apps, all in my name, all charged to my account. I did the math in my head. In the last 6 months they had taken nearly $20,000 from my account through transfers, withdrawals, and unauthorized charges. $20,000 that I hadn't spent and didn't even know was missing because Malcolm helped me review the accounts every month. He only showed me what he wanted me to see. The manipulation was perfect, systematic, calculated. At 2:30 in the afternoon, I organized all the documents into a folder, papers that proved fraud, theft, financial elder abuse, exploitation of a senior citizen, because that was who I was now, a vulnerable senior citizen being exploited by her own family. At exactly 3 o'clock, Mrs. Lorraine Green knocked on the door. She was accompanied by a tall man of about 65 with perfectly combed gray hair and eyes that conveyed intelligence and kindness. "Eleanor, this is Mr. Langston Price." "Mr. Langston Price, this is Eleanor." Mr. Langston Price extended his hand, his grip firm but warm. "A pleasure, Eleanor. Mrs. Lorraine Green told me about your situation. I want you to know I'm here to help you free of charge. This is personal for me." "Personal?" I asked, inviting them to sit at the kitchen table. "My mother went through something similar years ago," Mr. Langston Price explained, his face clouding over. "My brother financially exploited her until she was left with nothing. When we finally found out, it was too late. She died feeling betrayed and ruined. I swore I would help other people in her situation to honor her memory." His words touched me deeply. I wasn't alone. Other families had experienced this. Other mothers had been betrayed by their children. "Show me what you found," Mr. Langston Price said, pulling out a notepad. I laid all the documents on the table one by one. The bank statements, the fraudulent credit cards, the unauthorized loans, the receipts for excessive expenses, the home equity loan application. Mr. Langston Price reviewed every paper with professional attention, his expression hardening with each document. "This is serious, Eleanor. Very serious," he finally said. "What your son has done constitutes several felonies. Identity fraud, theft, financial elder abuse, forgery of documents. Can he go to jail?" I asked, feeling a mix of horror and satisfaction. "He could if you decide to file criminal charges. But first, let's talk about your options." Mr. Langston Price took out a pen and began to write. Option 1. Family confrontation. You show them what you know, demand they stop the abuse, and negotiate a repayment plan for what was stolen. This is fast, but it rarely works. Abusers generally deny, manipulate, and continue. I knew he was right. Malcolm would deny everything. Celeste would cry and make me feel guilty. Option 2, Mr. Langston Price continued. Civil legal action. You sue for the money stolen. You request restraining orders. You force them to return everything plus damages. This takes time, 6 months, maybe a year. But you would eventually recover your money. And option 3. Mr. Langston Price looked directly at me. Criminal action. You file charges for fraud. The police investigate. If there's enough evidence, and there is here, your son and daughter-in-law could face criminal charges, jail time, criminal records, severe consequences. Silence filled the kitchen. Mrs. Lorraine Green put her hand over mine. You don't have to decide now, Mr. Langston Price said softly. But if you need to act quickly, look at this. He pointed to the home equity loan application. If this gets approved, you could lose your house. We need to block it immediately. How? First, we go to the bank early tomorrow morning. You cancel all authorizations you've given Malcolm. You change your passwords. You freeze your credit so he can't open more accounts in your name. Second, we alert the bank about the fraud. We dispute all unauthorized charges. Third, we put the house into a trust that protects your property. It all sounded so complicated, so overwhelming. I know it's a lot, Mr. Langston Price said, as if reading my thoughts. But I will guide you every step of the way. You are not alone in this. And in the meantime, I asked, they keep living here, keep robbing me. That is your decision. Legally, you can start an eviction process. As the homeowner, you have that right, but it takes weeks. Or you can confront them right now. Tell them you discovered everything and they have to leave. The idea terrified and thrilled me at the same time. What would you do? I asked him. Mr. Langston Price thought for a moment. I would document everything first. I would take photos of the boxes, the expensive clothes, the fridge with the labels. I would gather all possible evidence. Then when you are ready, when everything is legally protected, that's when I would confront them from a position of strength, not weakness. It made sense, perfect sense. Is there anything else I should know? Mr. Langston Price added. Mrs. Lorraine Green mentioned that she overheard your daughter-in-law talking about waiting for your death to take the house. I nodded, the pain still fresh. That kind of comment can be used in court, especially if we are talking about elder abuse with intent to exploit to the end. It's an aggravating factor. How do we prove she snapped it? Mrs. Lorraine Green raised her hand timidly. I can testify. I heard everything clearly. Perfect, Mr. Langston Price said. An independent witness strengthens the case tremendously. We reviewed everything for 2 more hours. Mr. Langston Price took copies of all the documents. We made a list of immediate actions. We planned every step. When we finished, I felt different, stronger, clearer. For the first time in years, I felt I had control over my life. Mr. Langston Price and Mrs. Lorraine Green left around 5. Malcolm and Celeste would be home soon. I put all the original documents in a bag and gave it to Mrs. Lorraine Green to keep at her house. I couldn't risk them finding them. At 6 o'clock, I heard the car arrive. Voices, laughter, the door opening. I took a deep breath and walked out of the small room. It was time to start fighting. Malcolm and Celeste walked in carrying shopping bags. Bags from expensive stores, brands I could never afford. They were laughing about something one of them had said in the car. They saw me standing in the living room and their laughter died as if my presence ruined their good mood. Hey Mom, Malcolm said without emotion. What are you doing standing there? We need to talk, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Celeste rolled her eyes. We're tired right now. It was a long day. A long day of shopping with money they didn't have. Or rather, with money they did have, mine. This is important, I insisted. Malcolm sighed dramatically. Fine. What is it? I wanted to yell everything I had discovered. I wanted to throw the papers in their faces, but I remembered Mr. Langston Price's words. Document, protect, then confront from a position of strength. I want us to go to the bank together tomorrow, I said firmly, measuring every word. The bank for what? Malcolm dropped the bags onto the sofa. I need to check my accounts. Some strange things have happened. Charges I don't recognize. I saw something flicker in Malcolm's eyes. Fear, guilt. It disappeared so fast I almost thought I had imagined it. They're probably your medications, Mom. Or utility bills. You know how it is. No, they're other things. Large transfers. I want to review it with you. Celeste crossed her arms. Vivian, don't insult Malcolm. He's been helping you with your finances because you don't understand any of that stuff. You don't understand any of that stuff. Another way of saying I was stupid, incapable, useless. That's precisely why I want to go to the bank to understand better, I replied, keeping my composure. Malcolm exchanged a look with Celeste. Something silent passed between them. I can't go tomorrow. I have a job interview, he barked quickly. An interview where? At a tech company. Very important. I can't cancel. A lie. I could see it in how he avoided my gaze and how his hands moved nervously. Then the day after tomorrow, I proposed. God, what a hassle, Celeste muttered, opening her fridge. The one with her name on the labels. She pulled out a bottle of very expensive wine. If you have doubts, check your statement online. Malcolm taught you how to do it. He taught me how to do it, but he never gave me the real passwords. He always helped me log in with his phone. I prefer to go in person, I insisted. Geez, what a pain, Celeste muttered. She came back with 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to Malcolm. They didn't even offer me a glass. They drank in front of me as if celebrating something. You know what, Mom? Malcolm said after taking a long drink. You're being ungrateful after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me. The words came out harsher than I planned. Yes, we live here to take care of you. We could be in our own place, living our lives, but no, we're here putting up with things, sacrificing ourselves. Sacrificing yourselves in my house, eating my food, spending my money. No one asked you to stay, I said firmly, softly. The silence that followed was dense, dangerous. Celeste slammed her glass down on the table. You know what? I'm sick of your attitude, Layla. You came back from the hospital yesterday with that martyr look as if we're the villains in your story. I never said that, you don't have to. We can see it in how you look at us, how you talk, as if we owe you something. I gave you everything, I whispered, trembling. Everything. Celeste laughed a cruel laugh. You gave Malcolm a mediocre childhood in a forgettable neighborhood. You raised him with limitations, with a poor mentality. We've had to work twice as hard to overcome all that. Every word was a stab. Malcolm didn't stop her. He just drank his wine, looking away. I broke my back working to give him the best, I said firmly, feeling the tears threaten. The best, please. The best would have been giving him real opportunities, connections, a better life. But instead, you filled him with guilt and obligation. Celeste, enough, Malcolm murmured, but without conviction. It's time she heard the truth. Eleanor, you are a burden. You always have been. Malcolm is too nice to tell you, but I'm not. Living here is a huge sacrifice. Tolerating you is exhausting. The tears fell. I couldn't stop them. If it's such a sacrifice, I said firmly through sobs, you can leave whenever you want. Malcolm put down his glass. He approached me with a serious expression. Mom, this is our house as much as it's yours. Dad would have wanted it this way. A family house. Your father left it to me because he assumed you would share it with your family, with us. His tone was final. There was no room for discussion. Celeste gathered the shopping bags. I'm going to put these away. Greg, help me. I watched them go upstairs with their expensive purchases. I heard the door of my former bedroom close. I was left alone in the living room, trembling. The confrontation had gone worse than I imagined. They hadn't admitted anything. They had twisted everything to make me feel guilty. But something had changed. I no longer doubted. I no longer questioned if I was exaggerating. Celeste's words had been crystal clear. I was a burden, a nuisance, someone to tolerate until I died. I went to the small room and took out my phone. I texted Mrs. Lorraine Green. I need to go to the bank first thing tomorrow. Can Mr. Langston Price still come with us? The reply came in seconds. Of course, we'll pick you up at 8. I put the phone away and sat on the bed. Upstairs I heard their voices. They were speaking normally now, probably laughing at me. The foolish old woman who was finally figuring out the truth. But I wasn't foolish anymore. And tomorrow I would start taking back what was mine. I didn't eat dinner that night. I wasn't hungry. I just went to bed early, listening to their footsteps upstairs, the television on, their occasional laughter. I closed my eyes and thought of Richard. How he had worked so hard to protect me. How disappointed he would be to see his son like this. Forgive me, Richard, I whispered, trembling in the dark. I let them destroy what you built, but I'm going to fix it. I promise. And for the first time in months I slept soundly because I knew the war had begun. And this time I wouldn't lose. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was still dark outside. The house was silent. Malcolm and Celeste were sleeping soundly after emptying another bottle of wine the night before. I got dressed carefully. I chose my best clothes, an outfit I had bought for Richard's funeral and rarely wore. I wanted to look dignified, strong, not like the sick old woman they thought I was. By 7:30 I was ready. I took my purse with the few documents I had kept. The rest was safely at Mrs. Lorraine Green's house. I heard movement upstairs, steps toward the bathroom. Malcolm was waking up. I left the small room and went to the kitchen. I made coffee. I acted normally, as if nothing had happened last night, as if their words hadn't shattered me. Malcolm came downstairs in pajamas, his hair messy. He seemed surprised to find me awake. "Morning," he barked, his voice husky from sleep and wine. "Good morning. Coffee?" "Yeah, thanks." He sat at the table checking his phone. I poured him a cup. My hands didn't tremble. I was surprisingly calm. "You going out?" he asked, noticing my clothes. "I have a doctor's appointment, post-op checkup." A lie, but a necessary one. "Ah, you want me to take you?" "No, Mrs. Lorraine Green is taking me. We already arranged it." Malcolm nodded immediately, losing interest. He went back to his phone. At exactly 8 o'clock, I heard a car horn outside. Mrs. Lorraine Green had arrived. "I'm leaving now," I announced, picking up my purse. "Take care, Mom," Malcolm said without looking up. I walked out of the house, feeling every step as a liberation. The cool morning air filled my lungs. Mrs. Lorraine Green was in her car. Mr. Langston Price was in the passenger seat. "Morning, Vivian." Mrs. Lorraine Green greeted me with a warm smile. "Ready?" Mr. Langston Price asked. "Ready," I replied, getting into the back seat. The bank was 20 minutes away. On the way, Mr. Langston Price went over the plan. "First, we'll speak with the manager. We'll explain the fraud situation. We'll request copies of all transactions for the last 2 years. Then we'll cancel any authorization they have on your accounts. We'll change passwords. And finally, we'll set up security alerts to prevent future fraud." It sounded simple when he put it that way, but my stomach was tied in knots. We arrived at the bank just as it was opening. The building was modern with large glass windows. We went inside and Mr. Langston Price went straight to the customer service desk. "We need to speak with the branch manager. It's an urgent matter of bank fraud." The employee, a young woman with a professional demeanor, looked at us seriously. "One moment, please." She disappeared behind some doors. 5 minutes later, she returned with a man in his 50s. Gray suit, kind expression. "I'm Mr. Theodore Banks Johnson, the branch manager. How can I help you?" Mr. Langston Price extended his hand. "I'm Mr. Langston Price Dawson, attorney. I represent Miss Ella Laner Devereaux in a case of financial fraud." Mr. Theodore Banks led us to a private office. He closed the door. "Please explain the situation to me." Mr. Langston Price spoke first, presenting the case clearly and professionally. Then it was my turn. My voice was shaky at first, but I gained strength as I recounted everything. The unauthorized loans, the credit cards opened in my name, the transfers I didn't recognize. Mr. Theodore Banks listened carefully, taking notes. His expression grew more serious with every detail. "Do you have documents to support this?" he asked. I placed the copies of the fraudulent bank statements on the desk. Mr. Theodore Banks reviewed them carefully. "This is very serious," he finally said. "I'll need you to fill out a formal fraud report. We will also immediately review all your accounts." The next hour was spent on his computer reviewing every transaction. His expression grew darker and darker. "Ms. Devereaux," he barked after a long silence, "there are multiple irregularities. Large transfers to accounts you don't recognize, withdrawals from ATMs far from your usual area, recurring charges for services you say you never contracted. How much?" I asked, afraid of knowing. Mr. Theodore Banks did some calculations. "In the last 2 years, Approximately $42,000 has left your accounts in transactions you did not authorize. I felt dizzy. Mrs. Lorraine Green held my arm. And this? Mr. Theodore Banks continued, pointing to his screen. This is a home equity loan requested 2 weeks ago for $50,000 using your house as collateral. I never authorized that. I know. And the signature on the application is suspicious. It appears forged. Mr. Theodore Banks showed me the digital document. The signature looked like mine, but there were subtle differences. Malcolm has access to my documents. He could have copied it. I said firmly that constitutes forgery, a serious felony. Mr. Theodore Banks looked at Mr. Langston Price. Will you be proceeding legally? Yes, Mr. Langston Price replied firmly. We will be filing criminal charges. Mr. Theodore Banks nodded. I am going to freeze that loan immediately. It will not be processed, and I will initiate the fraud protocol to recover the stolen funds from your accounts. Another hour was spent filling out forms, signing declarations, changing passwords, and canceling authorizations. Mr. Theodore Banks removed Malcolm's name from all my accounts. He no longer had access. He could no longer touch my money. The credit cards opened in my name without authorization would be canceled. The debts would be disputed. You are not responsible for paying fraudulent charges, Mr. Theodore Banks explained. And the money they already took, the $42,000, the bank will launch an investigation. If fraud is confirmed, which seems highly probable, your son and daughter-in-law will have to repay it with interest or face criminal charges. We left the bank 3 hours later. I carried a thick folder with copies of everything. Fraud reports, detailed bank statements, clear evidence of every crime. In the car, Mrs. Lorraine Green hugged me. You did so well, Vivian. This is only the beginning, Mr. Langston Price said. Now comes the hard part, confronting them. When? I asked. When you're ready, but I suggest it be soon before they discover you went to the bank. I looked out the window. The streets sped by. Normal people living normal lives, families who truly loved each other. I want to do it today, I said firmly suddenly. Tonight when they get back from work or wherever they go to pretend to work. Mr. Langston Price smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was one of approval, of respect. Then tonight it is. We will be with. You won't have to face this alone. We got back home around noon. Malcolm and Celeste weren't there. They were out. Mrs. Lorraine Green and Mr. Langston Price came in with me. They looked at the 2 refrigerators, the labels with Celeste's name on them, the luxurious items all over the house, the expensive clothes, the brand new appliances. Mr. Langston Price pointed around and said that all of it was bought with stolen money. It's all evidence, he barked. He pulled out his phone and started photographing the fridges, the boxes of designer clothes in the master bedroom, the receipts we'd found, everything. We need to document the lifestyle they maintain versus the income they claim to have, he explained. This proves they are living on illicit funds. We spent the afternoon getting ready for the confrontation. Mr. Langston Price jotted down key points. Mrs. Lorraine Green made tea and practically forced me to eat something. By 5 p.m. the plan was set. At 6 p.m. we heard their car pull up. Mrs. Lorraine Green and Mr. Langston Price took their positions in the living room. I stood right in front of the door. Malcolm and Celeste walked in, laughing. They froze when they saw our visitors. What's going on here? Malcolm asked, his tone immediately on the defensive. Sit down, I said firmly. My voice was stronger than I expected it to be. We need to talk. Mom, what is this? Who is he? Celeste pointed at Mr. Langston Price. I am Mr. Langston Price Dawson, legal counsel for Ms. Devereaux. The color completely drained from Malcolm's face. Counsel. Mom, what did you do? I took a deep breath. This was it. There was no going back. I found out everything, Malcolm. Everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Malcolm and Celeste just stood there, frozen in the entryway, their faces going from shock to confusion and then to barely concealed fear. Found out what? Celeste asked, trying to sound angry, but her voice cracked. Mr. Langston Price stood up. He had that presence that only experienced lawyers have, that air of authority without having to raise his voice. Mr. Malcolm Devereaux and Ms. Celeste Devereaux, you are being accused of financial fraud, theft, forgery of documents, and elder abuse. Malcolm let out a nervous laugh. What? This is ridiculous. Mom, what did you tell these people? The truth, I responded. I told them the truth you've been hiding. What truth? I haven't hidden anything. Mr. Langston Price opened his briefcase and pulled out some documents. He placed them on the coffee table one by one, like a prosecutor presenting evidence in court. Capital One credit card opened in the name of Vivian Devereaux on March 15th of last year. Current balance $14,800. Did you authorize this card, Ms. Devereaux?
No, Ian answered firmly.
That was a bank error, Malcolm shouted. I was going to tell you, Mom. When? I asked. When you couldn't pay it anymore. Mr. Langston Price continued. Citibank personal loan for $5,000 requested in the name of Vivian Devereaux 1 year ago. Money transferred to the account of Malcolm Devereaux. Did you authorize this loan? No. Celeste stepped forward. Eleanor, you're confused. You signed those papers. We explained everything to you. You explained it to me? My voice got louder. When you put papers in front of me and told me to sign without reading. We explained everything, Celeste insisted. That's a lie, Mrs. Lorraine Green interjected from her chair. I've heard them. I know how they operate. Celeste glared at Mrs. Lorraine Green with pure hatred. You nosy old bat. This is your fault. You put ideas in her head. No one put anything in my head, I said firmly. You showed me who you really are. Mr. Langston Price held up another document. Home equity loan application against the property at 1222 Magnolia Street. Forged signature. This is a federal crime. Malcolm went completely pale. That loan, it was for investment to grow the money for all of us. For all of us? I was furious. You didn't even visit me when I was in the hospital. You came back from the hospital and put a separate fridge in here because my food wasn't good enough for you. That has nothing to do with it, Celeste screamed. It has everything to do with it. It shows exactly how you see me, as garbage, as something to exploit until I die. No one said that. Malcolm tried to approach me, but Mr. Langston Price stepped in his way. Yes, they did, Mrs. Lorraine Green said calmly. I heard them. The night she returned from the hospital, Celeste told Malcolm. It won't be long now. When the old lady passes, this house will be ours. It's worth $200,000. Celeste turned on Mrs. Lorraine Green, absolutely furious. That's a lie. I never said that. You did, Mrs. Lorraine Green confirmed calmly. And Malcolm replied, I hope she hurries up. I'm tired of pretending to care. The words landed like bombs. Malcolm opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His eyes filled with panic. That was taken out of context, he finally stammered. What context justifies wishing your mother dead? I asked, tears now falling freely. Mom, I don't want you to die. Of course not. But you want my house, my money, everything I have left. That's different. No, it's not different. You robbed me. You lied to me. You exploited me. And you were hoping I would die so you could take what little I own. Mr. Langston Price took back control. We have all the documentation from the bank. $42,000 fraudulently withdrawn from Ms. Devereaux's accounts in the last 2 years. Unauthorized transfers, inexplicable withdrawals, charges for services she never contracted. I was managing her finances because she asked me to, Malcolm yelled desperately. Managing finances does not mean stealing, Mr. Langston Price responded coldly. And it definitely does not include opening unauthorized credit accounts. Celeste changed tactics. She collapsed onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. She started crying, dramatic tears, exaggerated sobs. I can't believe you're doing this to us, Eleanor, after everything we sacrificed for you. We live in this horrible house to take care of you. We left our lives to be here. This horrible house that you wanted to steal from me, I thought. We weren't trying to steal it. We were just securing our future. At my expense, I finished. Malcolm ran his hands through his hair. He was sweating. His eyes darted around, searching for a way out, an explanation, anything. Mom, we can fix this. We'll pay everything back little by little. But don't do this. Don't involve lawyers. Don't destroy your own family. Destroy my family? I repeated, incredulous. I'm the one destroying it, not you who robbed me, lied to me, and treated me like dead weight. We were desperate, Celeste screamed. Do you think we wanted to live like this in this old house with a pensioner who barely survives? Then why didn't you leave? No one forced you to stay. Because we had nowhere to go. Celeste stood up, her tears gone, replaced only by rage. Do you know how much rent costs? Do you know how hard it is to get a job? We had no choice. There's always a choice. The choice was not to rob me, not to exploit me. Mr. Langston Price intervened again. You have two options. First, you return every stolen cent plus interest. You leave this house immediately. You sign a legal agreement acknowledging the fraud and accepting a repayment plan. We do not file criminal charges. And the second? Malcolm asked, his voice dead. The second is that we file criminal charges, fraud, forgery, elder abuse. You face between 5 and 15 years in prison, criminal records, your lives ruined. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Celeste was the first to speak. We don't have $42,000. Not even close. Then start getting it, Mr. Langston Price said. Sell everything you bought with stolen money. The clothes, the shoes, the electronics, all of it. That won't even bring in $10,000, she protested. Then get real jobs, 2 jobs if necessary, and pay monthly until the debt is fully covered. Mr. Langston Price continued, addressing Malcolm. You have until noon tomorrow to choose. Option 1 or option 2. Malcolm slumped into a chair. He looked completely defeated, small, nothing like the son I had raised. Mom, he barked, his voice broken. Are you really going to do this? Destroy your own son? You destroyed yourself, Malcolm. I am only protecting myself. I'm your son, your only family. A son doesn't steal from his mother. A son doesn't wish her dead. A son doesn't treat her like garbage. We love you. You don't love me. You love my money. You love my house. You never loved me. Maybe when you were a little boy, but that boy died a long time ago. Malcolm started to cry, real tears this time. Sobs from someone who finally realized he had lost everything. Please, Mom. Please don't do this. I looked at my crying son. Part of me, the part that had carried him as a baby, the part that had cared for him when he was sick, the part that had sacrificed everything for him, wanted to give in. It wanted to hug him and say everything would be okay. But another part, the new part, the part that had woken up in that hospital, knew the truth. If I yielded now, everything would continue. The abuse, the exploitation, the cruelty. You have until noon tomorrow to decide, Mr. Langston Price said. Option 1 or option 2. But you are leaving this house either way. Today? Today? Celeste shrieked. Where are we supposed to go? That is not my problem, I replied. Just as it wasn't your problem where I would sleep when you took my room. Mr. Langston Price pulled out some final papers. This is an immediate eviction notice. You have 2 hours to pack your personal belongings and leave. This is illegal. Celeste screamed. It is not. This is Ms. Devereaux's house. You are unauthorized occupants. Legally, I can call the police right now to escort you out. Malcolm looked at me with pleading eyes. Mom, please. But I said firmly nothing. I couldn't. If I spoke, I would break. Mrs. Lorraine Green stepped closer and took my hand. Her silent support gave me strength. Time is running out, Mr. Langston Price said, checking his watch. 2 hours. Celeste ran upstairs. Malcolm followed her more slowly, looking at me one last time. In his eyes I saw many things. Rage, fear, pain. But I saw no genuine remorse, and that told me everything I needed to know. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I could hear them moving around upstairs, drawers being opened violently, closets being emptied, Celeste screaming, Malcolm responding in a broken voice, the sound of things being thrown in anger. Mrs. Lorraine Green, Mr. Langston Price, and I stayed in the living room waiting, watching, making sure they didn't take anything that didn't belong to them. Are you okay? Mrs. Lorraine Green asked, squeezing my hand. I wasn't. I was shattered inside, but I also felt something strange, something I hadn't felt in years. I was reclaiming my dignity. I'll be fine, I replied. After about 40 minutes, Celeste came downstairs dragging a suitcase. Her face was red, either from crying or from rage, probably both. I need to get things from the kitchen, my utensils, my dishes. The dishes belong to the house, I said firmly. You are not taking anything that was here before you arrived. I bought those dishes with stolen money. They stay. Celeste glared at me with pure hatred. You miserable old woman. You ruined your son's life. You ruined him as a child with your poverty, and now you ruined him as an adult with your selfishness. Every word was designed to hurt me, to make me doubt myself, to destroy me. But it didn't work anymore. No, you ruined your own lives with your decisions. I'm just protecting myself. Protecting? Celeste let out a hysterical laugh. From what? From your own family? You'll end up alone, Eleanor. Completely alone, because that's what you are. A bitter old woman who pushes everyone away. I prefer to be alone than surrounded by thieves. Celeste opened her fridge in a fury, the fridge with her labels on it. She started taking things out, bottles of wine, expensive cheeses, meats. She shoved everything into bags. This is mine. I bought this with my money. Go ahead, I said firmly. Take it all. Mr. Langston Price observed every movement, taking notes, photographing what they took, documenting everything. Malcolm came downstairs with 3 large suitcases. He looked aged, as if he had lost 10 years in just 2 hours. Mom, for the last time, reconsider. We're family. Family doesn't steal. We made mistakes. Yes, I admit it. But we can fix this. Give me a chance. I gave you thousands of chances. You wasted them all. He started carrying the suitcases toward the door. Celeste was still emptying the fridge, determined to take every last piece of food. When she was done, the new fridge was completely empty. Only the labels with her name remained. Shelley, Shell, reminders of her arrogance. Where will you go? Mrs. Lorraine Green asked gently. We have friends, Celeste replied bitterly. People who actually appreciate us, unlike this woman. Then go with those people who appreciate you, I said firmly. They made 3 more trips, carrying clothes, shoes, electronics, and the giant television they had bought. They loaded everything into the car. On the last trip, Malcolm stopped at the door. He looked at me one last time. One day you'll regret this, Mom, when you're alone in this empty house, when there's no one to take care of you, when you realize you needed us. I don't need you. I never did. I just needed you to respect me, and you never did. Celeste walked past him carrying the last bag. Let's go, Greg. This place smells like poverty and resentment. Malcolm followed her. The car was packed with their belongings. They got in and the engine started. I watched them drive away through the window. The car disappeared around the corner. And just like that, after a year-long nightmare, they were gone. My legs gave out. I sat down on the sofa and the tears started to fall, not tears of sadness, but tears of liberation, relief, and pain, all mixed into a deep sob that came from the very core of my being. Mrs. Lorraine Green hugged me. It's over. They're gone. You did the right thing. Mr. Langston Price added. I know it hurts, but you did the right thing. I cried, my soul tearing apart for 10 minutes, letting it all out, years of pain, of humiliation, of silent abuse. When I finally calmed down, I looked around. The house was a mess, with open drawers, scattered things, and traces of their presence everywhere. But it was mine again. What happens now? I asked. Mr. Langston Price opened his briefcase. Now we wait for their decision. By noon tomorrow we'll know if they choose option 1 or option 2. And if they don't respond, Then we automatically proceed with criminal charges. We already have everything. The bank will file its own fraud complaint. This is serious, Eleanor, very serious. I nodded. Part of me, the maternal part that would never completely die, hoped Malcolm would choose the right option, that he would admit his guilt, repay what he stole, and at least try to redeem himself. But another part knew the truth. Malcolm and Celeste only regretted being caught, not what they did. Mrs. Lorraine Green stayed with me that night. She wouldn't let me be alone. She made dinner and we tidied up the house a bit. We talked about trivial things, her plants, the weather, everything but what had just happened. When I finally went to sleep for the first time in a year, I slept in my own room. They had left the bed unmade, and the sheets still smelled like Celeste's perfume, but it was my room, my space. I changed the sheets, opened the windows for some fresh air, and cleaned away the traces of their presence. When I lay down in my bed in my room, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. The next morning, I woke up with the sun streaming through the window. Mrs. Lorraine Green was already in the kitchen, making breakfast. Morning. How did you sleep? Better than in months, I answered honestly. We had breakfast together. Eggs, toast, and coffee, simple but delicious. Do you think they'll respond before noon? I asked. Mrs. Lorraine Green shrugged. I don't know. But if they don't, Mr. Langston Price is ready to proceed. The hours passed slowly. 10 a.m., 11:30 a.m. At 12 p.m. my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, Mom. Malcolm's voice sounded different, tired and defeated. What do you want? I need to talk to you. I can come to the house, just me. Celeste stayed where we are. I looked at Mrs. Lorraine Green. She nodded. Come, but Mr. Langston Price will be present. Okay. I hung up and called Mr. Langston Price. He arrived in 15 minutes. At 12:05 p.m., Malcolm knocked on the door. I opened it. He looked terrible with deep bags under his eyes, wrinkled clothes, and uncombed hair. We went into the living room and sat down. Mr. Langston Price had his notepad ready. I accept option 1. Malcolm said without preamble. You will sign the agreement? You will acknowledge the fraud? You will commit to repaying everything? Mr. Langston Price asked. Yes, everything. But I need time. I don't have the money right now. How much do you have? None, zero. We spent it all. Mr. Langston Price did some quick math in his notepad. $42,000 plus 5% annual interest is approximately $47,000. If you pay $500 a month, it will take nearly 8 years. I don't have a job. I can't commit to $500 right now. Then get a job, 2 jobs if necessary. This is non-negotiable. Malcolm ran his hands over his face. Celeste left me. When I told her I would accept option 1, she called me a coward and took off. I don't know where she is. I felt no pity. I felt nothing. That's between you and her. The agreement is with you. She will face her own legal process. I know. Malcolm looked directly at me for the first time.
Mom, I'm sorry.
I really am sorry. I'm not interested in your apology. I'm interested in you paying back what you stole. I'll pay it all back. I swear. Mr. Langston Price pulled out the documents. Sign here and here and here. Malcolm signed without reading. His hand trembled. You will pay $300 per month until you secure stable employment, then $500. The first payment is due in 30 days. If you miss a single payment, we will file criminal charges immediately. Understood. We finished the paperwork in silence. When it was done, Malcolm remained seated as if waiting for something. Anything else? I asked. Can we ever fix this, our relationship? I looked at him, at my only son, the baby I had carried, the boy I had raised, the man who betrayed me. I don't know, Malcolm. Honestly, I don't know. He stood up slowly, walked toward the door, and paused. I love you, Mom. I know you don't believe it, but I love you. I didn't answer. I let him leave. When the door closed, I released the breath I had been holding. That's it, Mr. Langston Price said. He signed. He is legally obligated. And Celeste, she will face her own process. The bank will pursue her for the fraudulent cards. She won't escape. Justice was in motion, slow but inevitable. 3 months passed since that day, 3 months of rebuilding, of healing, of learning to live again. Malcolm made the first payment, exactly $300. It arrived via bank transfer without a note, without a message, just the money. He paid the second month and the third. We didn't talk. We didn't see each other. There was only that monthly transfer that arrived punctually, proof that he was at least trying to remedy what he had destroyed. Celeste, on the other hand, disappeared completely. The bank initiated legal action against her. There was a warrant out for her arrest for fraud, but no one knew where she was. She probably fled to another city, maybe another state. I didn't care. As long as she didn't come back into my life, she could be anywhere. The house slowly became mine again. Mrs. Lorraine Green helped me redecorate. We painted the walls a warm cream color. We bought new curtains with small floral patterns. We reorganized the furniture. The new fridge, the one with Celeste's labels, I sold it. A neighbor bought it for a good price. With that money, I bought plants for the garden. Roses, lavender, and sunflowers. My old fridge stood alone in the kitchen, as it should have been all along, and I filled it with food I liked. Fresh fruits, vegetables, and a piece of pie on Sundays. Mrs. Lorraine Green became more than a neighbor. She became family, the family I chose. We had tea every afternoon. We walked in the park on Saturdays. We watched old movies on Sundays. You know what the best part of all this is? She asked me one day as we watered the plants together. You got your smile back. She was right. I had started smiling again, laughing, feeling genuine joy. The money the bank recovered was deposited into my account. Not all of it, but a significant portion. $18,000 that was returned after the investigation. The rest would come through Malcolm's payments over the next few years. With that money, I fixed things in the house that had been broken for years. The leaky roof, the bathroom plumbing, the garage door, practical things that gave me peace of mind. I also set aside some for emergencies. I had learned my lesson. I would never be financially vulnerable again. Mr. Langston Price still visited occasionally, always professional but also warm. He helped me organize my legal documents, creating a real protected will that no one could manipulate. Your house will go to whoever you decide, he explained. And I've put protections in place so that no one can change this without your physical presence and a mental capacity evaluation. Thank you, Mr. Langston Price, for everything. It's an honor to help you, Eleanor. You are stronger than you realize. Perhaps he was right. I had discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed, the strength to set boundaries, to say no, to protect myself. One day, about 4 months after everything, I was in the garden pruning the roses when I saw a car park in front of my house. My heart raced. Malcolm? Celeste? But no, it was a young woman in her 30s with a small child holding her hand. She approached timidly. Miss Devereaux? Yes, that's me. My name is Naomi Bell. Well, this is hard to say. I'm Malcolm's new girlfriend. The world seemed to pause for a second. He told me everything about what he did, about how he hurt you. Naomi lowered her gaze. I wanted you to know that he's changing. Truly, he has 2 jobs now. He's paying his debts. He's going to therapy. I didn't know what to say. I'm not here to ask you to forgive him, Naomi continued. I know that's your decision. I just wanted you to know that he's trying to be a better person for his son. I looked at the child. He must have been about 4 years old with big, curious eyes. You're my grandma? My heart broke and healed at the same time. Yes, little one. I'm your grandma. Naomi smiled softly. You don't have to decide anything now. I just wanted you to know. They left after a few minutes, but that encounter left me thinking for days. Could I ever forgive Malcolm? I didn't know. The damage had been profound. The betrayal still cut deep. But now there was a grandson, an innocent child who was not to blame for anything. Mrs. Lorraine Green found me crying that afternoon. I told her everything. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to close that door forever. The other part remembers that Malcolm was a good boy once before. Everything seemed to fall apart. You don't have to make a decision today or even tomorrow. Take all the time you need. And that's precisely what I did. I took my time. 2 months later, on my 69th birthday, a letter arrived. It was from Malcolm, handwritten, and several pages in length. In this letter, he didn't ask for my forgiveness. He didn't try to justify his actions. He simply wrote about the process he was going through, his therapy, his work, his relationship with his son, his regrets. Towards the end he wrote, "I don't expect you to forgive me, Mom. I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that every single day I'm trying to be the man you raised me to be. The one I lost sight of for so long. I love you. I've always loved you, even if my actions have shown you something different." I put the letter away in a drawer. I didn't respond to it. I wasn't ready just yet, but I also couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Another month went by. Mrs. Lorraine Green organized a small party at my house. She invited neighbors and friends from her book club. The house was filled with laughter, with the warmth of human connection, with people who genuinely enjoyed spending time with me. I looked around and realized something important. I wasn't alone. Celeste had told me that I would end up all alone. But she was completely wrong. I was surrounded by people, by real affection, and by genuine respect. Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in my room. My room in my house, my home. I thought about the entire journey, starting from that horrible night when I came home from the hospital and found the fridge divided, all the humiliation, the abuse, the betrayal, and all the way to this very moment, free, dignified, and at peace. I had learned so many difficult lessons along the way. That love cannot be conditional. That family isn't just about blood relations. That setting boundaries isn't selfishness, it's a matter of survival. That asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage. I had learned that I deserved respect. That my life had value. That my well-being was important. And most importantly, I had learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity. I picked up my phone and typed a short message. "Malcolm, I received your letter. I'm not ready to see you just yet, but I would like to meet Richard formally when you and I are both ready to talk to each other as adults. No lies, no manipulation, just honesty. Think about it." I sent the message quickly, before I could change my mind and regret it. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet anyway. Maybe it would never be complete forgiveness, but it was a first step in the right direction. It was something at least. His reply came within minutes. "Thank you, Mom. Whenever you're ready. No pressure at all. I love you." I turned off my phone and looked out the window. The moonlight was shining down on my garden. The flowers that I had planted were swaying gently in the breeze. Tomorrow would be another day with its challenges, its joys, and its surprises. But I would face it from a different place. From my strength and from my peace. Because I had learned the most important lesson of all. That true family isn't the one that makes you feel small. It's the one that helps you grow and become a better person. Real love doesn't exploit you. It supports you. And sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply saying, "Enough is enough." I went to sleep that night feeling something I hadn't felt in many years. Hope. Not hope for a return to the past. That past was gone, it was dead. But hope to build a future for myself. One where I truly mattered. Where my voice was heard and respected. Where my boundaries were respected. And as I finally drifted off to sleep, I smiled because finally, after all that time, I had come home. Not to a physical house but to myself. And that was the greatest victory of all.